Hey, Z! Oh my god, what the hell is that?
It's Kiba.
Well, he's dead!
I know. Anyway, why are you here?
Okay, look. Looking at the latest episode of KingOhger, I think that there's a potential for all of us to get a group power-up.
But we don't have Ohger calibers.
Yes, but think of something that we all have that can be wielded.
Get out.
Look, I just want to touch this, bro! Okay.
That's what I thought.
Real quick, I know that folks have been asking about those God chart reviews, and I addressed this on Tokutonic Shift back on Friday. But, long story short, I'm working on it. But, my real life job has been more stressful this month because, of course, it would be. And I'd like to take the little bit of free time that I do have not editing. Because, remember, I do everything these reviews and videos entail myself. So, yeah, just know they're gonna come, just maybe, hopefully within a week or two. Anyway, another week of KingOhger and another crawl to the finish. Almost literally, because although Dugdead would be taking things a bit more seriously leading up to the finale, nah, it's still fun and games to some extent, and very last minute character insights from some background cast on this week's KingOhger. So, remember last week when Yama unlocked his powers behind the scenes? Well, just them uniting last week was enough to unlock the remaining King's powers! Wow, not even a proper build-up, they just got it. Well, now that two jesters are gone, Dugdead's so upset about it that he takes it out swinging, while Minongon's just sad that he no longer gets the Hillbill Panty Shot action up close. But Minongon's got a plan this time. But would Dugdead really send out the husk that he needs to revive? Apparently so. What? Okay. While the Kings in their prep up for the final battle decide they gotta prepare for the worst and thus get the lines of succession established. Debowski tries getting his sister involved, but she's tied up with the conjugal visits. And Morphonia, though we've known for a good while that she was next in line to rule, this time we get a tease that she's just the daughter of some criminals. Which makes sense, because previously we learned that the population of Gokon is just criminals and the staff are just people on parole. But now that the papers have been signed between them Kings, they can now practice up those new gained abilities. First up, we get Debowski with the power of fire.
Ironic.
Getting so lit that he himself is that fire.
Hey, Orga, what's it like being on fire? You've done it a couple of times, right?
Rita don't want that smoke though, and tries to shut that shit down just to get frozen themselves. It seems like all the powers showcased thus far do have some sort of repercussions. What was Yanma's? Damaging his electronics? I mean, not as bad as having third-degree burns or frostbite. But hey, there's totally a reason why these powers were split up to begin with, but the King should get back to focusing on their successors. But wait, here's Minongon, and he's got them beams! Almost hitting Raculus, but we get cool anime lines of fury, just enough for Suzume to drop them panties and Raculus taking the hit. Oh, and Morphonia gets hit too. So the Kings take this fight out. Okay. Where Minongon goes, Minigon. It's here that Yama points out that Minongon's abilities are time-based. And if they aren't careful, he could just whip up yet another Dugdead. And I doubt that Giro wants yet another daddy. But he's gonna need one anyway because the beams hit him, Yama, and Himeno. This time, making them mentally babies. Alright, look, let's stop that right there before Kermit shows up or me and Minoru throwing hands again. Where was I? Oh yeah, relevance! Because Even though Minangan has made cheap prizes out of half the squad, Dugdad is just being the negligent father that he is, leaving enough time for Rita to send him flying. Well, back at Himeno's castle, Suzume is out to castrate King Diculus, all to the delight of Morphonia. And Baby Gira ain't gonna take Big Bro getting the shaft, and summons Kuagan to assist. Of course, Raculus knows what it's like to have everyone under him, so he turns things around in a flash. Now that it's nap time for our kids, Rita and Dabowski wonder what's the deal with their successors. As it turns out, they've mentally reverted back to the mindset of about 10 years prior, where Suzume was in it for season control of Shugadam, but got dicked down instead. And Morphonia was a prison baby that learned her way around the lock at a young age. The two decide that they're gonna flip on their successors and make their new old selves satisfied. In Morphonia's case, it's being taken in by Tofu's nice food and weather, and Suzume, it's the courthouse! Morphonia is more than willing to give up being successor, while Suzume would like nothing more. But is that really the truth? Well, no, because Suzume always wanted to be wifed up, but sometimes duty comes before their dreams. While Morphonia wants to show that you too can go from rags to riches, and that being a criminal doesn't mean you shouldn't qualify for being at the... Oh, shit. This could be turned into some sort of political joke. Not even gonna try. I see what you're doing, Toei. Stop it. Originally, Morphonia wasn't going to succeed Rita. On paper. For her own protection. And Dabowski knows and wants the very best for his sister. But sometimes brotherly instinct kicks in and he don't want to see her with no man. Either way, Minangan is back, and Rita and Dabowski gonna throw hands. But first, Dabowski's got a plan. Rita's gonna freeze Minangan, and his flames will prevent them from getting frostbite. And that's it! Minangan is now a Freezy Pop, freeing everyone from the age grip on their minds. Where Morphonia and Suzume finally accept what they've been told. Morphonia, the duties that they will inherit, and Suzume, who's truly been in love with Raculus, giving this show more and more vindication to my earlier statements about the two! Rating time! This show continues going down a very awkward pace to the finish. I thought that this would be a Rita-focused episode, but ended up being geared more towards Suzume and Morphonia. Though the lines of successions for the kings was made more or less clear way earlier in the show, this episode did finally flesh out Morphonia, who was one of the retainers that was less dived into. The other being Kuroda. And Suzume, who we see wasn't originally doing the marriage thing out of love, but actual duty. But in the process, getting to know the real Raculus, she was just actually down bad. However, this episode still felt very anticlimactic. Though better than last week's, there's still a lot of flaws that I have with the padding these episodes have been getting. As such, this episode will be getting the Bioman Beam! Minangan was the one that I least expected to get done in this episode, but he wasn't really. He's been incapacitated, and that leaves the door open for Dugdad to still return down the line. This is either a plot device that will be a setup for any of the future crossover films, and really, the Kings vs. Dombros, Kings vs. KingOhger, and even Boom Boomja vs. KingOhger are all candidates for this entire plot point to end up getting paid off with Dugdad's return. As the way that these versus films now work, they kind of serve as epilogues for the series proper. So KingOhger's loose end would be frozen Minangan if that's not handled within the show. While in the KingOhger side of things, they also end up having their own beef with Dugdad, so that could be a bigger candidate for the potential payoff. But they kind of allude to something else going on with that world, given Prince's previous appearance within the show. So it could be either or. Either way, at this point here, this really just feels like it's sequel bait in the process. Though my biggest issue is that Dugdad still let Minangan out, knowing that he still needs him for his resurrection, and then just didn't even bother checking up on the guy. Seriously, for someone who was upset about getting beat, annoyed that he's losing gestures left and right, he really is just sitting on his hands. It's the most awkward display of villainy out there, with the excuse being that he can't even understand Minongon half the time. I mean, I get it. It's played up for laughs. But the ups and downs this show has been having tonally since Doug Dead's appearance leaves a lot to be desired. Sure, before the show even came out, I had concerns that this would end up being too serious at first, and was pleasantly surprised at the balance of humor and seriousness being thrown in. But the first half of the show really handled it much better than the tonal shift that we're having during the second half. That being said, we now know that all the King's powers have been unlocked just by them touching tips, and that their powers separately would cause a hindrance to their individual nations, which sounds smart, but then you gotta remember that these powers are over 2,000 years old. And if you remember the lore of King-Ohger, then you would know that there is no other kingdoms outside of Shugadam 2,000 years ago. So, though Yama's powers affect all of electronics, I'm pretty sure that Enkasopa wasn't a tech empire until he became the king. And though I am disappointed that Deboski did not gain the Maji muscles as his power-up, the fire actually is something that he had already. I think he's done this in like 1 or 2 episodes before this one, but also in this one, where his Ohja caliber just lights up on fire as his special move. So it could be that the hints of what everyone's abilities were, or had some semblance to, was already something showcased off in the past. So it might not have a complete correlation with what their kingdom proper would be hindered to if they had these abilities. I mean, think about it. How would Gokon fail getting more snow? And also, if you think about Jeremy, he didn't have a kingdom. His dad definitely didn't have a kingdom. And he was already sleeping around with Spider-Woman before they were even done beating the bugs. But it would be ironic if his power-up was just a big old can of Raid. Well, Himeno is not just proficient in curing disease, but also making some herself. Remember that she technically designed the powerful tranquilizer that Raculus was going to use on Gira during that fight. But it could also not be something lame, like poison, and be something proper with physical attributes, given that Himeno frequently dual wields when she fights. All in all, really, this is a speculation point that's kind of moot because we'll probably end up getting some details throughout the week, and we're literally just a week away between this big reveal, so we'll see then. I just hope that they really start taking things into a proper endgame now, since the preview did not allude to any more wacky shenanigans. Also, Garojim's back! But yes, this episode's centerpiece was indeed Morphonia and Suzume, and it's great that we finally got some more Morphonia plot, but it's seriously near the end of the show. I guess they reverted their mindset to only being 10 years and not going full infant on them was to give us, the viewer, a way to flashback without the flashback. Nice budget saving measure and giving us the story that we've kind of known for a while. Like I said, we already knew that Morphonia was next in line for succession and was the only one of the retainers that we knew would actually be next in line given how things work in Gokon. But they had to pay off why she had apprehensions about taking the position to begin with. While Suzume, as I mentioned previously, really did the marriage arrangement in order to benefit Tofu. She was committed to her country, but did find a love that she wasn't actively looking for, but did want to find. And although Raculus was playing a bit for the greater part of their entire relationship, now that he's free to be his real self, she's living her best life, not having to hide it. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? What did you think about this week's King-Ohgers? The baby mentality, the fire in the nation, and the background revelations on these characters' past. Anyway, that's it for me. I will catch you all next time. Until then, bye.